Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Launchpad. I'm Dave Kluge, and I will be hosting this today. And once again, I am joined with two fantastic guests. I've got Evan Silva from Establish the Run and Dalton Kates from 444. And we're going to talk a little bit about the world of sports betting. We're going to look ahead at the Super Bowl, some possible MVP picks. We're going to talk about that sports betting process. And of course, I'm going to give them an opportunity to victory lap some of their biggest wins of the 2021 season. Be sure to check this one out. We're going to have a lot of fun on today's show. Given the current odds, who is your favorite Super Bowl pick for next season? We've got the Bills and Chiefs at plus 650. We got the Rams at plus 1,000. We've got the 49ers at plus 1,200. Bengals and Packers at plus 1,300. And then some guys after that maybe you'll want to pick. But Evan, let's go ahead and start off with you. Who is your favorite pick for next year's Super Bowl?
Well, it feels like I'm cheating because my pick, and I was going through Dave sent us a show sheet beforehand. And I took the Chargers at it was actually 25-1 on DraftKings. Okay.
Yep.
And I bet it as I was going through my show. I was like, I got to bet this, but then they traded for Khalil Mack today. So I feel like I'm cheating, but that was my original answer. I can't pull up the DraftKings app on my phone right now. I don't know if it moved. It probably did a little bit, maybe to 20-1, but that's where Dave had it listed on the show sheet anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I took it at 25-1, but man, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa on the outside, Justin Herbert at quarterback. They locked up Mike Williams. The division is really tough, and it got way tougher when the Broncos went from, a perennial 7-10, half-stepping team to a team that legit, is going to be, have the potential to go really deep in the playoffs after acquiring Russell Wilson, being able to drop him in to that offense with a ton of talent around him. That's scary. Patrick Mahomes, the Raiders aren't slouches. So it's a little bit scary just because of the division, but at the odds, I really like it. And I like the Chargers on both sides of the ball. I love Brandon Staley, love Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and this is one of those divisions where we could very easily see three of these teams making the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. And all you got to do is make it to the playoffs, and then divisions don't matter. It's anybody's game. Dalton, let me throw it to you, though. I saw you smirking a little bit. I'm wondering if you're going to have the same flag plan here. Who do give me the odds? Who are you picking for the Super Bowl?
All right, well, I mean, since Evan just completely stole my pick, I was going to say I was cheating, too, with this Khalil Mack thing. But, yeah, Chargers, by the way, are still available 25-1 on BetMGM. So they do have that line still available. But I do think one other alternate I did have. I like the Ravens plus 2,200. I think, getting back full pieces, you're going to get a second year of Rashad Bateman there, Marquise Brown, and as well as Mark Andrews there. That's going to be a dynamic offense. We've seen Lamar Jackson get really close. They have a really good team around them, great coaching. And I think it's one of those things where you have all these pieces that could potentially, gel together. The issue is, like Evan said, is the AFC is really loaded. So I kind of like taking some of these like dart throws, where, maybe fading, the Bills and the Chiefs and maybe hitting, Broncos or Bengals or the Ravens or Chargers. Like, I think it's going to be, one of those really tough teams to predict. And whoever comes out of the AFC, I think has probably a decent chance at winning the Super Bowl. So I think right now there's a couple teams kind of in that realm there. And if I'm not choosing the Chargers, I think the Ravens are a fun team at plus 2,200.
Yeah.
Just checked, by the way, and the Chargers did on DraftKings. Again, last night I bet it at 25-1, Chargers to win the Super Bowl. They did move to 20-1 as I just checked it. So you're not getting as good odds. I still think it's fine. I still think it's a fine bet.
Yeah, and I mean, Khalil Mack is obviously going to make a huge difference there. And like you said, it's not even Khalil Mack by himself. It's Khalil Mack playing on the opposite side from Joey Bosa. That's just going to be just impossible for offensive lines to deal with next year. But Dalton, I love the call on the Ravens because it seems like people are sleeping on them. We know that recency bias just plagues us all the time. And last year, in the offseason, the Ravens made these huge moves to really pump up their passing attack. And then what happened? J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards each missed the entire season, and they've got all these new shiny toys in the passing game and didn't really get to establish the run game that they're known for. And this year, I think it all just kind of comes together. So I love that call out on the Ravens. They were my pick last year, and I'm going back to the well again this year. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning into episode 28 of the Launchpad. now on the Football Guys channel. So you can find this over at youtube.com/footballguys. Last week, I was with Kyle Yates and Alfredo Brown. We talked about some free agency speculation, talked about some of our favorite rookies in the upcoming draft. And today I'm joined with Evan Silva from Establish the Run and Dalton Kates from 4for4. We're going to talk a little bit about sports betting. We're going to talk about free agency. And of course, with the draft looming, we are going to talk about that a little bit as well. Before we get into some of these topics, though, Evan, go ahead and introduce yourself to anybody that doesn't know who you are already. I know you've been on the couch, so the people over at Football Guys are probably pretty familiar with you by now. But Evan Silva over at Establish the Run, let everyone know where they can find your content and where you're at on social media.
Yeah, I worked at Roto World NBC for, I don't know, a decade and a half. It felt like, 3 decades, but it finally got free from the corporation and went out and started a business with Adam Levitan and a couple other guys. And in 2019, and this past year was our 3rd year. And so we're entering our 4th year now. And I don't know, it's been a wild ride. It's been awesome. My daughter is 9 years old. She gets all into it. I just got a bunch of Establish the Run gear made, and she's wearing her pink Establish the Run sweatshirt, literally as we speak. And, she wears it to school, and, it's just been a really cool experience, to get her into it, and, for us to really get into it, and, just go out and take a chance on ourselves. And it's been just an awesome ride. So, and if anybody, listening to this or in whatever capacity that, they work in ever gets a chance to do that, jump all over it, because it is so self-gratifying. And, I love every year there are more fantasy football analysts doing this. We just saw JJ Zacharyson do this.
Kyle Yates, who was on last week.
Yeah. Kyle Yates even did that. And, I love to see that, it's not always going to be super successful. I mean, you're taking a risk, but I think it's a risk worth taking. And and anybody that is listening to this, no matter what industry that you work in, has an opportunity to do that, jump on it.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I mean, we talked about that last week with Kyle, and then I got JJ coming on in a few weeks as well.
Yeah.
And, taking that leap of faith and betting on yourself. Not a lot of people have the balls to do it, but man, when it works out, beautiful things happen. So love seeing the way Establish the Run has been growing. You and Adam are absolutely killing it over there. I'm still over at Football Guys, and Dalton over here, he's still at 4for4. So we're still doing that corporate grind, but I love it over at Football Guys, and Dalton.
No. Those are small businesses. We're all on the good side together.
We are.
Football Guys was really one of the first. Football Guys and 4for4 were both 2 of the first, sort of innovators to start small businesses to work away from the corporations.
Yep.
ESPN, Fantasy Pros, Roto World NBC. So listen, we are all in this together. We're on the same team, guys. Don't forget that.
And I say this all the time, but I've been on Joe Bryan's newsletter since I was in high school. I mean, this company started in 2000 before I was even playing fantasy football. Yeah. And I just wanted to get an edge outside of ESPN. We were playing on ESPN and everybody was reading the ESPN columns. So I wanted to get outside of the box. And really the only 2 websites at the time were Football Guys and FF Today. And I just took to Football Guys and I've been a fan ever since. So getting to work here is kind of a dream for me. It's still a little bit surreal, even after a full year. But Dalton, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? First of all, let everyone know about that combine hit that you had with the 40-yard dash last week. That was pretty nice. But also let everyone know where they can find you on social media and all that.
Yeah, no, we definitely got lucky because FanDuel kind of messed up their odds and they threw a Tyquan Thornton at a 50-1 for the fastest wide receiver. So we absolutely hammered that and ended up hitting. So that was pretty nice. But for people who don't know me, I've done some work with Mike Brody down at Apex Fantasy Leagues, and then now have transitioned a little bit more into betting content. Have been working with the 4-4 team there, Connor Allen, Ryan Noonan, now John Daigle. So we have a really strong team over there. And my main thing this year when I was producing content was had a very niche market that I was focusing on. It was the weekly special. So it would be who would have the most passing yards this week, who would have the most rushing yards, receiving yards and all that good stuff. So I was able to create a nice little niche for me. I was able to attack that market and have a nice little season for myself over there. So yeah, it's kind of what I'm doing right now. I also produce some dynasty content on the side, and I play some high stakes redraft leagues as well. So that's a little bit about me.
So before we get into some takes and players and team discussion and stuff like that, I want to hear a little bit about each of your process when it comes to this, because football guys, for the most part, we stick to fantasy football. But when it gets to the world of sports betting, I mean, we just got to call it like it is. The majority of people that are betting money are losing. I mean, it's the house always wins, and that rings true. But guys like you are sharp, and you've got a process where you're able to arbitrage and look at different sports books and things like that. So, Evan, why don't you start us off a little bit? Want to hear a bit about your process, and also maybe some advice for people that are new to getting into this.
Yeah, so I would suggest viewing sports betting generally, especially when it comes to spreads and totals, as just a for fun hobby. But at Establish the Run, we've had documented success betting props in the NFL and NBA, and I think that anyone that's betting sides and totals, but not measuring those bets with bets that actually win, are kind of kidding themselves. You can win at props.
Mhm.
You can win at DFS, but it's a very high variance thing, especially if you're playing tournaments. If you think that you can win betting sides and totals over the long run, you're joshing yourself. And so the goal really, I think, is to use the props at which you can win, to stay alive, keep yourself in the game in sports betting, and to have fun, and also to stay alive in DFS, where you can hit a big, you can have a big win, and just to stay in the game. Use the props to sort of raise your floor, so that you can hang around in other ones. And props are hitting at the highest rate. At our company, from both an NFL and NBA perspective, and with NBA, like you can get five, a solid 5 or 6 props in NBA down every night.
Mhm.
And in NFL, you could probably get 30 a week, that are actually good bets. And then, and you can also play like golf DFS, which I know 4 for 4 Ryan Noonan is killer.
Oh yeah.
And you guys just got Dago, and we're about to add golf stuff as well. You can have big wins in that, but the goal is really just stay in the game. Do not, lose your whole bankroll. Try to be smart about it. Definitely have fun. Bet, a side or a total here and there, but you have to understand that you are likely to lose in that, but you are likely to win if you're smart about your prop betting.
And I
Yeah.
think that's it. I mean, prop betting is such a huge edge right now. I mean, that's what we do, especially as fantasy analysts, is we just, dive so deeply into these players and what they're going to do on week to week. And I mean, with your matchup column, I mean, that alone right there is probably enough to give people an edge in props. But Dalton, why don't you go ahead and build off of this a little bit? Do you have any additional advice that you'd like to give people that are new into sports betting?
Yeah, so I wrote 3 like little notes down here, and it kind of follows along the same thing that Evan was saying. So first thing I wrote down was like be disciplined, in terms of like you have to know like what are good prop. You don't want to be betting everything, right? Because that's the thing, is there's edge in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 props. There's not edges in 50, 60, 70. You don't have the time to be focusing on that. You want to be focusing on specific edges, where those edges are, hit those edges a little bit harder than normal. And like Evan said, like sides, totals, like you have to like be so head and shoulders above everyone in order to make that profitable. And the thing is, a lot of these sports books, they're focusing a lot of their time and attention on those because that's a lot of the money is. So you have to think outside the box and think like a sports book. All right, what are the sports book thinking? How are they trying to get money, and how can we take advantage? Where are they not focusing their attention? All right, let's focus all our attention where they're not placing their attention. I think that's one of those things where if you think like that, then it'll allow you to kind of be able to find little edges in ways that you honestly wouldn't think possible. Another thing I wrote down also as well is like to analyze yourself, like make sure that your process is good. Just because you're betting something, you think you have an edge, make sure you're tracking your bets. Make sure you like actually know that you're winning and you have a big enough sample to win, because there's a difference between losing and being a bad bettor, because you can lose with good process, and you just have to analyze to make sure, hey, was that a bad beat? Did I have the right process behind that? And I think that's one thing as well. And then last thing I wrote down here was discernment. Like make sure like the info that you're following is good information, especially now as we're coming into free agency, NFL draft as well. Like there's a lot of noise out there, and you have to make sure that you are on top of what is actual real info and what is fluff and noise, because the markets tend to move a lot of times based on noise, and you have to be betting in your edges where a lot of the real noise is.
So
Mm.
that kind of brings me to my next point is, doing what we're doing, where we're trying to publish our takes and get our information out there. At the same time, you're also trying to make money. So I'm wondering, do you guys ever have bets that you'll keep close to the chest that you don't publish, or are you guys completely transparent? And Dalton, you could start off here. Are you completely transparent with everything that you bet, or is it kind of a mix between what you're sharing publicly with your audience and what you're betting yourself?
Yeah, so in our Discord, I share everything I bet. I just throw every single bet that I have out there, and I want people to win alongside me. It's a lot more fun when you're winning alongside people than just to be winning yourself. Like I've noticed that when I've placed a bet off the record and I haven't and I've won that, I'll be like, all right, well, that's not as fun as winning with everyone. So every single thing I've done, like since I've been official with 444, has been on the record, because that's a lot more fun for me to win alongside people. And that's what we're doing over there. So I enjoy that. And then for as long as like my Twitter goes, like I'll throw maybe like 5% of my plays out there. And that's usually based on if I think it's a really good bet and the line hasn't moved, an hour or 2 hours after I post it in the Discord.
Evan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm wondering, do you publish everything as well? I know that you said that you've got documented success with Establish the Run. Do you guys put everything out there?
I mean, I do everything that I have confidence in. Now, I do make bets, like stupid bets on sports that I don't even know about, just like so I have some action going on in the background while I'm, working. Like hockey bets or like baseball bets. I know a little bit about those sports, but not very much. I would never, tell anyone about what those bets are. They're likely to lose, but man, when they win, that's really fun.
And you're learning.
But, yeah, and I'm learning, but I'm never going to be a good hockey or baseball bettor,
So let me ask you guys.
Everything that I have actual confidence in is on our podcast, is on our YouTube channel, goes in the Discord. I involve it in my articles, and I do a lot of it. But I would never. No, I'm completely transparent. Just like probably irresponsibly transparent, maybe. I mean, as I give everything away that I have actual confidence in.
Well, transparency,
and that's because I want people to like this shit. I want people to win with me, like Dalton said. I want to win with other people, and like when we killed the Super Bowl. I mean, there are like 5 or 6 games all year out of the 17 game season, 32 teams. 5 or 6 games all year that you can just get completely right. We got it completely right. We got everything right about the Super Bowl, and everybody in our Discord, all our subscribers were so happy, and we gave it all away on a YouTube show entering the Super Bowl. But nothing made me happier than seeing all those people in there, going nuts, in the Discord. Like it's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, obviously we're football guys. I think we're all big football fans here, but you guys have talked a little bit about basketball and golf. I'm hearing that's a pretty soft market now that a lot of people are getting into. Is football?
I don't know if it's soft, but it's a really fun sweat, especially if you could get like some dudes, that are on that Sunday. Cause it almost always goes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunday is the big day. Obviously it's the final day. And if you could just get a couple dudes that are like in the mix, like I usually bet. I take Ryan Noonan's bets. I'm real good friends with Ryan Noonan, and I'll take like his top 6 guys, and I'll just bet $100 on each of them to win it all. He nailed Scotty Scheffler at like 35-1 early on, and Hoagie. Yeah, I don't even know who these guys are. Hoagie at like 65-1. And that, I mean, that really should make your entire season. I mean, you hit 2 super long shots, but that's how I like to play. I'll pick like 6 guys, and then hope that one wins.
Like it. How about you, Dalton? Is football your main squeeze, or are you betting on other sports as well?
Football is the main thing, but like Evan, I've gotten into golf a little bit too. So I live right next to the Waste Management Open, and ever since then, I just started betting on it. Oh, it's crazy! I was there for the hole-in-one on a Sunday, so at 16. So it was absolutely bananas. People,
oh my god, is that when they were throwing the beers?
Oh yeah, it was one of those things where like, I feel like I just peaked as a sports fan. Like I don't know if I can ever. I may just have to sit inside at like a basement for the rest of my life.
All the boomers were saying it's bad for sports, though.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about
that. Anybody I know that's been to the Waste Management Open has nothing but great things to say about it. It's supposed to be an absolute blast.
It is next level. So yeah, so I've dabbled in the golf a little bit. I tail Ryan Noonan's bets and Ron Kloss down at 4-4. So whatever they post, I do it. And it's cool because you can bet like their outrights as well as, daily matchups too. So against different guys and in their groups as well. So it's definitely a fun sweat, but definitely football's the main thing for sure.
Love it. All right. Last question about kind of process and things here. And Evan, I'll ask you this question. We opened up the show saying, this Khalil Mack trade just went through and that kind of swung your judgment. You wanted to bet on the Chargers here. And that's something where we hear it all the time, where news breaks and then people immediately say, go to your sports book, bet on this, and I'm just wondering, do you think that actually gives you a leg up, or is that some sort of false sense of security that you're thinking you have an edge? I mean, how quickly do the sports books typically react to news like this?
That's a really good question. And I think it's very case by case. It's, just every situation is different. Sometimes the sports books don't react quick enough to, 2 offensive linemen being out that's announced on Friday. And, that can really swing, the matchup in the trenches, but between 2 teams. So it's very case by case. It's a great question, but it's a very difficult question to answer, generally.
Yeah, because I just, and this is completely anecdotal, but I feel like every time I do that, where I think, I got an edge, I'm going to beat the sports book here and place a bet. It feels good when I put that bet down, but 9 times out of 10, it doesn't hit. Dalton, is this something
it's probably
that you
a little bit better than 9 times out of 10?
Yeah,
right. Dalton, is this something that you typically try to do too? Try to beat the sports books to the news, or is that just a loser's game trying to play that?
Well, one thing I noticed for some reason that early on in the season it was a lot easier to beat them to that news. But there's specific, like Evan said, it's case by case. Like we were able to get down on when Zane Gonzalez was rolled out, we were able to get down on like a first field goal for the Bills and stuff like that. But again, it really depends. And one of those things also is just like knowing ahead of time of how things are going to affect in certain scenarios. So like knowing a player's questionable, how is that going to affect, and just like almost like waiting for it when like inactives come or whatnot. That's one way you can potentially do it. But again, like it's definitely something that for sure helps if you're able to get in, but you got to be really quick. You got to have those Twitter fingers ready to go in a minute or two. Otherwise those lines are gone.
Well, let's go ahead and get into some talks. And we already talked about the Super Bowl winners to start the show, but let's talk a little bit about the 2022 MVP. No surprise here, but Patrick Mahomes is the favorite, paying out plus 650. Last I checked was before the news broke that Rodgers was coming back to Green Bay. So I don't know if this has changed, but odds on him going back to back were at plus 700 when I looked at this a couple days ago. Then we got Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, pretty much all the top quarterbacks rounding this out. Are you guys confident placing bets on MVPs this early in the year? And if so, Dalton, start us off. Who's your guy that you'd be taking at these odds?
I mean, I already got a couple in. So Caesars dropped Trey Lance at 200-1. So we absolutely hammered that. And he's at 66-1, I believe, right now, which I still kind of like. Niners currently have the 3rd best odds to win the NFC. So they're expected to be a good team, good cast of weapons around him. I do like that. I also like Watson at plus 8,000. So if you look at the last 3 years of what he's been for his MVP odds, he's been 20-1, 14-1, and 22-1. So you're getting really good CLV there. One of the markets just moved into, like basically all the markets have 40-1. I think he may be 70-1 on Caesars right now, which I think is still good value. I think he does play in some capacities here. But my favorite bet that I think is, within the realm of the top guys would be Lamar Jackson plus 2,800 for the same reasons I like the Ravens. Lamar already has an MVP behind him. We saw him uptick in passing a little bit this year. He has a really good cast of weapons. J.K. Dobbins is coming back. It's a good team. We can expect them to be good. We want to chase quarterbacks on good teams because those are genuinely the ones that win MVPs. And plus 2,800, I think, is doing a little bit of disrespect for Lamar Jackson right now at those odds.
Yeah, agree with everything you said there. Evan, you got anything to add on some MVP favorites for the 2022
My answer
season?
was going to be Lamar Jackson at 28-1.
Look at you guys.
And I saw it, and I bet it last night on DraftKings. Now I can't even find it. I don't know why that would be, but yeah, he's already won it once. He had MVP stretches last year, and he really he tailed off. He got banged up. Ronnie Stanley was out. But Ronnie Stanley's coming back. Mark Andrews is coming back. He's a stud. Marquise Brown, I think, continues to get better. So, 28-1, Lamar Jackson. I mean, he can absolutely do. He could run for 1,000 yards again. He could throw for 30, run for 10. I mean, he's a good MVP bet really every year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at 28-1, I mean, I think he should be like 15-1.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so and that's something that you do when you're betting. It's not always that you're betting the guy that you think is necessarily going to win, but sometimes you just want to take advantage of odds that you think are a little bit off, and that's one that jumps out to me as well. Um, so I've seen a lot of people talking about this on Twitter, and I got to be honest, I don't have any interest in doing this, but I see some people betting on free agent speculation. Where quarterbacks might land. I'm wondering, is that something that you guys pay attention to? Do you ever place any bets on that, or is that just something that you typically avoid? Evan, I saw you shake your head a little bit here.
I never bet on stuff like that. I mean,
and is that because you think that the people placing the sports books probably just have information that you
well, the people that know where the free agents are going to go are like Adam Schefter, and then the people that actually work for the teams. Besides that, it's just all agent shit. Like for the vast majority. I mean, look, I worked at Roto World for 12, 15 years. We documented all this just by doing blurbs about everything, every piece of speculation. We would put it up on Roto World. So, I mean, I have like a lot of familiarity with how all this works, and it's Schefter or it's the teams. Sometimes like Mike Lombardi will get like a good nugget, but he can also get really thrown off at times. And I mean, I think he even personally would admit that to you, but like he can have a good scoop, but he can also have a really bad scoop. But Adam Schefter is like absolute money. And then pretty much everybody else besides those guys are what they're telling you is driven by agents,
Right.
and the agents want you to think that, well, they want you in the league to think that all these teams are after, their particular client, and there's nothing that's trustworthy there. And I would guess that that's how most people that are betting like that are betting off of. And then, if Schefter has an actual scoop, then the line moves instantly. So you're getting no value on it. So it's just that's total sucker stuff. Like trying to bet where a free agent is going to land. Maybe some guy gets, something right at like 7-1 and like, thinks he's the king, but no, he just got lucky on that. It's that's sucker stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And like you said, it's so driven by the agent. I mean, does Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, Carolina, do all of these teams really have interest in Deshaun Watson, or are they just trying to make it sound like Deshaun Watson?
Well, they probably do, but to differing levels, and that means nothing as to the actual outcome of what's going to happen. I mean, 17 teams probably have a level of interest in Deshaun Watson. I could go out there and put that on Twitter, and it would be correct, but it wouldn't help anyone, connect the dots to where Deshaun Watson's actually going to go. For anybody listening, do not bet this stuff.
All right. Dalton, I see you smiling and nodding.
I'm actually I'm going to slightly disagree here. And when it comes to the free agent aspect of it, I totally agree. But there's also like trade opportunities too. So like, for example, DraftKings had dropped odds of where Russell Wilson's next team was going to be. If I've listened to way too much Broncos local radio this year to know that if they weren't going to get Rodgers, Russell Wilson was going to be their next play. So if you can kind of discern, like, okay, we know this team's going to be interested. We know they're going to be aggressive, and their odds were like out of control. It was like plus 2,000 on the Broncos being Russell Wilson. So we did kind of play that a little bit. We also played Deshaun Watson to the Panthers at plus 1,600. So it's not like if you can find these little values where teams are interested and they're just messing up the odds a little bit. I think those are fine ways to play it. But when you have like no idea and they're juicing up their odds a ton, you got to stay away from that stuff. But
I just think that like devoting time to those is like you're burning time. Mm-hmm. But listen, if you could find something like Russell Wilson at 200-1 or something to go to the Broncos,
20-1. But yeah,
20-1. Okay.
Still.
Okay. Still solid odds there. But let's we're talking about the quarterbacks a little bit. And this offseason, I mean, we've already seen it a ton getting shaken up here with Carson Wentz and Russell Wilson over the last couple of days. But Dalton, start us off here. Not necessarily a bet that you're laying, but who is a guy that didn't get to start week 1 last year? Not injury related, just somebody that didn't start week 1 last year that you think is going to be a starter heading into next season.
Yeah, I think the obvious one is Mitchell Trubisky, but I'm going to focus on some other guy who I think is kind of sliding under the radar, and that's Marcus Mariota. I think Marcus Mariota is one of those guys who is not getting enough love, and he's going to be a free agent. Teams kind of know what they're getting out of him, and especially in a weak free agent class, I think he's one of those guys who could, be somewhat starter caliber. Maybe we see him go to the Steelers. I know the Broncos and both the Packers were both very interested in him as potential partners there before, obviously, the Broncos got Russ and, Rodgers re-signed with Green Bay. So I do think there's going to be a market out there for as well as Trubisky. And I think he's not being talked about enough.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both follow me on Twitter. You know that I love to stir the pot, and one that I threw out the other day was that Marcus Mariota was the QB2 in points per game in 2020. He only started one game, but hey, he killed it in that game.
That's such a Dave Kluge stat,
It really is. I mean, hey, you got to get people worked up somehow. But I am with you. I think that Marcus Mariota's time was cut way too short in the Titans. I'd love to see him. I think Pittsburgh would just be.
He started his career. I mean, he had a couple of badass seasons to start his career. I mean, and then everything. Well, he had like this nerve injury in his elbow, and he started to play like he lacked confidence. So I always thought he needed to change scenery. He, maybe needed to like step back for a while. I think the same about Sam Darnold. Who I think he has the talent. God, he's got to just get his mental together. And he's a baby too. I mean, he came out of college. He was so young. Marcus Mariota was also very young when he came out of Oregon.
I think Sam Darnold is still just 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's still a young kid.
Yeah. I think maybe at some point later in his career, he like Rich Gannon, he'll have like success later in his career, but he's just, he's got to sit on the bench for a couple years or something and just get his mental and his chickens ready, back to health. But this question was the quarterbacks that didn't start week 1 last year, but will this year. And
Yes.
Dalton named Marcus Mariota and Mitchell Trubisky. Deshaun Watson, obviously, would be one.
Which that should be cleared up. We're recording on Thursday night, but it sounds like most of that should be cleared up by the time this show airs tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
He's meeting with the grand jury tomorrow. Yeah.
I haven't looked at news for the last 4 hours, so.
Yeah, and he's meeting with the grand jury tomorrow. From the sounds of it, they don't have any evidence to indict him, and it sounds like he'll be looking at a misdemeanor. But we'll get all that information by the time the show comes out tomorrow. It should already be out there.
Davis Mills, I think, is
yeah,
very, very likely to be the Texans starter in 2022. Justin Fields is an obvious one, and Trey Lance as well.
So let's go to the NFL draft now and talk a little bit about odds right here. And Evan Neal, on every book that I've checked, is the odds-on favorite for the first overall pick. Typically, I'm seeing those at negative odds where you're not even making money on it. But I want to throw some out there right now that has pretty good odds, and I actually put some money down on this one. It seems like every year as we get closer to the draft, you start seeing hype building around quarterbacks, and Malik Willis had a great combine. A lot of people see it as a hot take that he's going to go number 1 overall, but we know that there are some quarterback needy teams that could possibly move up. Right now, he's at plus 3,000. Am I crazy for thinking that that's a pretty good bet to put on Malik Willis at the number 1 overall pick? What do you think, Dalton?
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I actually saw plus 5,000 on their site too. And if we look at the past 20 drafts, 75% of the first overall picks have been quarterbacks. I do know the Lions do like him. The question is, are they going to like him enough to get him at 2? And another question is, if a team does know that the Lions like him, are they willing to trade up into that spot? So I think obviously it has to be a trade up scenario for that to happen. I personally have bet Malik Willis first overall pick for that potential crazy scenario. There's only been one draft in the past 20 years, which is the EJ Manuel draft, in which a quarterback did not go top 3 overall. So I think the market isn't really taking into account just the quarterback aspect of it. I guess the main question is how good is Malik Willis? Does the NFL value him in that regard? But plus 5,000 or whatever you're getting him at, I think it's a fine little sprinkle.
I like that nugget that you pulled out, that EJ Manuel, that draft was the only time in what you said, the last 20 years that
since there's been 32 teams in the league, it's the only draft that no one's been drafted or no quarterbacks have drafted top 3.
Yeah, and I can't really understand. I mean, sure, this is a little bit of a weaker quarterback class, but it seems like quarterback needy teams are always trading up in the draft, trying to get that edge that they think.
Well, it already feels like the quarterbacks are moving up. Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, if you start to hear, if you listen to the rhetoric from Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, guys that have actual connections to teams, it already sounds like Kenny Pickett could go number 9, and the football team is the floor for several different quarterbacks Malik Willis. I mean, now we're already talking about him going number 2. We haven't even gotten
Desmond
past
Ritter
free agency yet.
Yeah.
And once everything, and we just had all this quarterback movement with Russell Wilson and Carson Wentz and Aaron Rodgers, et cetera, like things are starting to crystallize. And at that point, that's when, we'll actually be able to like look at people that, are good at mock drafting the draft, and we'll start to look at their mocks and, get a better sense. And, there will be reports that come out. I mean, no one really knows a whole lot, going into like the beginning of March and even at this point. But man, when free agency crystallizes everything, and I mean, we're going to start to get a decent picture.
So, Evan, sticking with this, we're still talking about quarterbacks in the draft here. Do you think Malik Willis is, guaranteed to be the QB1 off the board, or can you?
No, I would not use guarantee on anything on March 10th. Right. I think Kenny Pickett still has a shot.
All right.
And Matt Corral, I think, still has a chance to really get steamed at some point because he didn't do anything at the combine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's got a really I mean, I think on paper, his skill set might be the best of all the guys, So and he played under a guy that was an NFL head coach in Lane Kiffin, so. There's going to end up being 4 quarterbacks taken the first round. I mean, that's just, maybe even 5. But yeah, I mean, right where we're at, I think it's Malik Willis is the favorite to be the first quarterback drafted. But we have a ways to go, man.
And it is funny how we see those mock drafts starting to change already. I mean, you look at a mock draft from a month ago, they had maybe 1 or 2 skill players.
That is doing mock drafts before free agency is just a clown.
I mean, come on, we're degenerates. This is what we do. We got to keep the content machine going. No,
not yet.
Not personally.
I haven't done one in years.
You guys aren't doing it. Right?
No, but you know how it is, man. You got to keep the content machine going. The NFL is a 365-day media
You can't just
machine.
take a break, go on vacation, go on a cruise or something, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, that's a mistake that I made last year, was not taking any time off. I was starting my 2021 analysis the day after the Super Bowl, and this year I gave myself a 2-month break after, and it was much needed. So I learned.
You look good. You look good, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, refreshed. I got a little sun on my face in the winter. You don't get that too often. But Dalton, same thing over to you. I mean, is Malik Willis the guy here, or I saw you nodding with Corral, and I just did a rookie dynasty startup where Corral went number 2 overall after Malik Willis, and raised a lot of eyebrows in the group chat, but a lot of people are starting to push him up those draft boards.
Yeah, I mean, Evan hit the nail on the head there. I think Willis is the favorite for that, and I think Pickett's probably also going to go top 10. But Matt Corral was also talked about heading towards the end of the year before his injury as like the quarterback 1 in this class. And the difference between him and guys like Willis and Pickett is they've been in front of scouts. They've been able to see them, whereas Corral's really only had the interview process. But when he goes to his pro day, he'll be healthy. He'll be healthy off his high ankle sprain. Teams will be able to see him. And I think the sentiment behind Corral heading into this class was it was like he was in that top tier of quarterbacks, and I don't think that sentiment has changed. It's just more so the media is kind of driven, Corral and Pickett and Willis up because they've been able to see them a lot. And I think I'm not sure that
because they've seen them do stuff.
Exactly. And that's
Corral got hurt in that final game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember. Yeah.
So there's odds right now. You can get them on FanDuel right now. So Willis will be like -175, Pickett's like +190, but Cross +1400. Like I bet that at +1,000 or 10 to 1. I thought that was great. Now it's 14 to 1. I'm like, I kind of want to throw a little more extra on that. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's one of those things where the odds right there are definitely a lot
on DraftKings right now. Matt Corral +1,500, 15 to 1.
Yeah.
To be the first quarterbacks. I'm hitting it right now.
Yeah. I might sprinkle a little more.
Here we get to see, the mind of the sports bettors in action, putting the bets down live on the show here. But we talked about this a little bit, and I don't know if this is just the fantasy community getting excited because we're getting close to the draft. But you talked a couple months ago, and people were saying that this was the worst draft in modern history, to sell all of your rookie picks away for 2023 picks. But now that the draft is about a month away, people are starting to say that, Malik Willis could be the next Lamar Jackson, and Treylon Burks can be the next DK Metcalf, AJ Brown. And people are getting really hyped up about these rookies. So I'm wondering now, day 1, 32 guys are getting drafted. How many of these guys do you think getting drafted in the first round are going to be fantasy relevant? I'm talking quarterbacks, tight ends, wide receivers, running backs. Dalton, what are you thinking here? How many guys are going to go round 1?
So I'm thinking like five-ish wide receivers off the top of my head. That would be Burks, Wilson, Olave, London, and
Pickens.
Jameson Williams. Jameson
Okay,
Williams.
yeah.
So those fives I think are like pretty locked in. You could see someone else sneaking, maybe like a Pickens, maybe a Christian Watson. Who knows? Maybe Sky Moore. I don't know, but I think you're looking at those five being kind of locked in there, or at least close, like high second round, worst case for one of those guys. And then for running backs, I think there's one or two of them. I think it's going to be Walker and Brees Hall, who are probably going to be like mid to late 20 picks or like high second rounders, kind of where we saw like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like ETN, like Najee, like Swift, like kind of in that range. So that's really kind of the guys that I'm penciling in. I mean, Evan's definitely a lot more in tune with what's going on with these specific things than I am. I'm just more a fantasy guy.
I'm not. No,
not yet.
I did what Dave did, and I took 2 months off.
So did I. So we're all in the same boat. We're all catching up together.
No,
this is the time of year
that,
you shake the rust off.
spending all of February and March, watching draft prospects is minus EV when compared to like actually spending time with like my daughter after ignoring her for the entirety of the football season. So that's what I've started to do. Especially since I got to establish the run, I have like a little bit more freedom than when I was working for the big, the massive blood-sucking corporation. So I know all the measurables of the guys at this point, but I am still watching guys like Pierre Strong. I'm not even close to watching yet from the South Dakota State dude. Brees Hall, I watched one game, and I've seen like 20 carries of his entire career at this point. So I'm not comfortable really talking about the skill sets of these guys yet. I know their measurables, and I know who projects well analytically, but I mean I definitely want to get a feel for how these dudes actually look as I watch more and more as we get closer to the actual draft before saying anything definitive about these guys.
And you know what? That's the sign of a credible analyst right there, because a lot of people will just ramble on and on talking about something they have no idea about. A lot of times it's just better to say, hey, I haven't done my due diligence on this one yet, and I don't feel comfortable talking about it. So
no, it's coming. That. It's coming. Just tune in to establish the run for that content.
Definitely. Well, let's one thing I want to talk about. Obviously, there's so many draft bets out there. You can bet over-unders on where guys are going. Dalton, I know you've been diving into this a little bit. What is one draft day bet that has really, really piqued your interest so far?
Oof. One I like right now is Ikem Ekwonu, first overall to the Jaguars. It's plus 750. So there's been a lot of steam based off of what I would consider like mostly noise. So the Jaguars tagged Cam Robinson, their tackle, and Daniel Jeremiah then tweeted out that the signs are pointing towards Hutchinson being the first overall pick. And I'm not sure if that's like full on news or it's just like more so just like trying to connect the dots. But the thing is the Jaguars are also losing other linemen as well. So I'm not sure that like that totally means that they're going to be off of an offensive tackle first overall, because we still have a whole entire free agency period to come about. What happens if they sign Chandler Jones? What happens if they sign a pass rusher in free agency? And also like what happens, there's also potential things that, maybe they sign Armstead and maybe they rescind, Cam Robinson. Like I'm not sure unless they go in with, having Robinson and they get like a Taron Armstead that completely takes them off the board from a tackle right now, because I think the number one priority for the Jags right now should be to protect Trevor Lawrence. And Trent Baalke also said at the combine that he does really like the pass rushing depth in this class, especially the second and third round. And that was very noteworthy to me, the fact that he would say that. And I mean, I don't know why you had to have any reason to, lie or throw like a smoke screen out there when you're the one with the first overall pick. You're the one who controls the draft right there. So those are kind of things that I'm just trying to like piece together. And I think a lot of the market movement right now on Hutchinson first overall has been rather noise. And that's one of those things where I think you can hammer one of those tackles to potentially the Jaguars first overall.
I know you guys over at 4-4. They've been talking about Icky for the last couple of months now. They're all in on Icky.
Connor got 101 ticket on him right when Brugler dropped his mock draft and he had him first overall, hit him 100-1, and then so Connor has been
all in on that one.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we talked about it that when you're sports betting, we started off the show talking about building up that floor with prop bets and making sure you're being safe. But let's be honest, nothing feels better than hitting big odds, hitting a big parlay or something like that. So before we sign off here, I'm going to give each of you the floor just to tell me about your biggest win from the last season, and then let everyone know where they can find you on social media, let everyone know where they can find your content and all that. Dalton, start us off. What was your biggest win from the 2021 season?
Rashad Penny, 80-1, most rushing yards, week 16 against the Lions.
80-1?
80-1. Yeah. So they somehow messed up their lines. Like this is the one thing I'm talking about. Like sometimes like these sportsbooks, they don't pay attention to some of this. So if you're just like on it and you're paying attention, like 80-1 is ridiculous. It should have been like closer to like 15, 20-1. So right when we saw it, hammered it. He was going against the Lions who are bottom 3 rush defense. It was the forecast was supposed to be rainy. Rashad Penny had just like 2 weeks where he just hit over like 130 yards. So he showed that ceiling. We hammered it. Obviously, when you hammer something like that, like you feel good about it, but it actually hit. So like for that to hit, like it was pretty gnarly. So that felt pretty nice.
That's always a good feeling. I did that with the Patriots Bills games earlier in the season. I did one of the Thrive contests, and I said there's no way that the Patriots are going to throw the ball in this weather. And I took every passing under, every rushing over, and I ended up winning that Thrive contest. It's always kind of fun when you can just see the writing on the wall and get ahead of everybody else. But Evan, same question to you. What was your biggest win from the 2021 season? And then let everyone know where they can find your content.
Yeah. At Establish the Run, at Evan Silva. But my biggest win also concerned Rashad Penny. It was a couple weeks before Dalton's big win, and it was I think Rashad Penny was going against the Texans, and Carson was out, and a number of other guys were out in the backfield, and it was like Penny and I don't know some other guy. I can't even remember. I blacked all this out, but I have a text with Daigle. And Daigle was telling me, I was like, "Yo, why are we not talking about Penny in this text thread?" And then Daigle goes, "Because he's a terrible play." and I was like, "Oh, really? Well, provide some evidence and data. Are you spreading disinformation, Daigle?" And he didn't respond. I compelled him to put Rashad Penny in this cash lineup, and I won. I think it was the power sweep or something on DraftKings, a $1,500 entry. And I also got like top 40 in the Wildcat. And I double entry that by accident. Didn't even meant to double entry in the Wildcat. And so I won like $45K off of Rashad Penny. And it was like week 14, a couple weeks before Dalton's big hit. I think Connor Allen was in on that the big 80-1 rushing week as well for Rashad Penny. So Rashad Penny made us some money.
He made us some pennies. That's what he did.
The small businesses. Rashad Penny loves the small businesses.
Yes,
and he's providing us some lucrative wins here. So it was a good end of the year.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, Penny, man. I mean, he won a lot of fantasy championships. We talked about it last week, but I was actually in a league. You were in that league with AJ Dillon, and he picked up Rashad Penny and coasted all the way to a championship.
Oh my God, he won it. He won it. AJ Dillon. By the way, AJ Dillon, coolest dude.
So cool. Yeah,
so cool.
I've already told the story on this show before, but he sent me a trade request an hour before a game kicked off. Like that man went out, went through his warm-ups, went back in the locker room, sent me a trade request.
He had to have somebody else working it for him.
I was talking to him. He did it himself, and wow. I mean, he made some sharp plays, picking up Rashad Penny, playing him on St. Brown at the end of the season. And then there was even the 1 week where he picked up Allen Lazard off waivers, started Allen Lazard, and then that was like the one big game that Allen Lazard had. I think there might have been just a little bit of insider trading there. We'll see. But anyway,
let it slide.
Want to thank both of you guys so much for taking the time. I know this is a weird time of year where we're kind of just starting to look forward at the next season after taking a break from a crazy 2021. So really appreciate you guys taking the time this time of year. You can find both of these guys on Twitter. They're both putting out great content over at 4for4 and Establish the Run. And then, of course, I'm Dave Kluge. You can find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge. That's Kluge. And I will catch you next week. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to look on the right side of your screen where you can not only subscribe to our YouTube channel, but you could also check out one of our more recent videos. Just a reminder that I will be bringing this show to you every single Friday at youtube.com/footballguys. Feel free to drop a reply down at the bottom if you've got anything you'd like to add, and smash that subscribe button so you can keep seeing this content coming at you all off season long.